Every forest has rules. Stay on the trail. Don't hike after dark. Never respond to voices in the woods. Most people assume these rules exist for safety. But after hearing these 3 cases, you may start to wonder if they're there for something else. Because every person in these stories broke a rule they were warned about, and none of them survived long enough to explain what happened. October of 2021. 5 college friends arrived at Black Ridge National Forest for what was supposed to be a simple weekend camping trip. The forest wasn't particularly famous. There were no ghost stories attached to it, no urban legends, no reports of strange creatures lurking in the woods, at least none that most people knew about. When the group checked in at the ranger station, they were given the usual safety instructions. Stay on marked trails, keep food secured, avoid hiking after dark. But before they left, one of the rangers added something unusual. "If you come across an old cabin north of the lake," he said, "don't go near it after sunset." The group laughed. One of them asked why. The ranger paused for a moment before answering. "Just trust me." That was all he said. Later that evening, the friends set up camp near the edge of the forest. As darkness settled over the trees, the conversation eventually turned back to the ranger's warning. 2 members of the group, Ryan and Cole, couldn't stop talking about it. According to them, the warning made no sense. An abandoned cabin was just an abandoned cabin, nothing more. The other 3 friends disagreed. The ranger had specifically warned them to stay away. That should have been enough. But around midnight, Ryan and Cole made up their minds. They grabbed flashlights and announced they were going to find the cabin. Their friends tried to stop them. Neither listened. Within minutes, the 2 disappeared into the darkness between the trees. That was the last time anyone saw them alive together. Hours passed. The remaining campers stayed awake, expecting their friends to return laughing about the entire thing. But they never did. By sunrise, concern had turned into panic. Calls to their phones went unanswered. No messages, no signs of movement. Nothing. Finally, the group contacted the forest department. 2 rangers arrived later that morning and began searching the area. Using directions provided by the campers, they eventually located the cabin. It stood deep within the woods, partially hidden by overgrown vegetation. The structure looked abandoned. The windows were broken. The wood was rotting. And yet, for reasons nobody could explain, the front door was slightly open. The rangers entered first. Seconds later, one of them stopped. In the middle of the cabin was Ryan, dead. Authorities later confirmed he had suffered severe injuries, but investigators were unable to agree on exactly what had caused them. There were no clear signs of an animal attack, no evidence of another person, no obvious explanation. But what disturbed the search team even more was who wasn't there. Cole was gone, completely gone. The cabin was small. There was nowhere to hide. No basement, no secret rooms, nothing. Yet there was no sign of him. No body, no backpack, no phone, nothing. Search teams spent the next 3 days combing the surrounding forest. Drones were deployed. Tracking dogs were brought in. Volunteers joined the effort. Still nothing. It was as if Cole had simply vanished. Eventually, the official search was suspended. Ryan's death remained unexplained. Cole's disappearance remained unsolved. To this day, no one knows what happened inside that cabin. Some believe an unknown predator was responsible. Others think Ryan and Cole encountered another person deep in the woods. And there are those who think the Rangers' warning existed for a reason that was never written in any official report. Whatever happened that night, one fact remains. 5 friends entered Black Ridge National Forest. Only 3 of them left. In the summer of 2022, 3 experienced hikers entered a remote section of Alder Creek National Forest. Unlike most visitors, they weren't amateur campers looking for a weekend adventure. They had spent years exploring forests across the country and considered themselves more experienced than the average hiker. That's why none of them took the warning seriously. At the trailhead stood a faded wooden sign. Most of the paint had chipped away long ago. Only one message remained visible. Do not touch marked trees. There was no explanation. No ranger station nearby. No additional information. Just those 4 words. One of the hikers, a 29-year-old man named Nolan Pierce, immediately started laughing. "What does that even mean?" he joked. His friends Trevor and Brooke weren't sure either. Maybe it was related to forestry work. Maybe the trees were being studied. Whatever the reason, the warning seemed ridiculous. Within minutes, they had forgotten about it. The trail led them deep into the forest. Hour after hour, they saw nothing unusual. No strange sounds. No wildlife behaving strangely. Nothing that felt out of place. Then, sometime in the late afternoon, they found it. Standing several yards off the trail was an enormous pine tree. Unlike every other tree around it, this one had a bright red mark painted across its trunk. The paint looked fresh, almost new. Trevor immediately pointed at it. "That's probably what the sign meant." Nolan grinned. Only one way to find out. Before either of them could stop him, he stepped off the trail and walked directly toward the tree. Brooke reminded him about the warning. Nolan ignored her. He placed his hand directly on the red mark. Then he pulled out his phone and snapped a selfie. The 3 waited. Nothing happened. No sounds. No movement. No mysterious figure in the woods. Just silence. Trevor laughed. Brooke rolled her eyes. The warning suddenly felt even more stupid than before. As evening approached, they returned to their campsite. For several hours, everything seemed perfectly normal. They cooked dinner, talked around the campfire, and joked about the strange sign. If anyone had left the campsite at that moment, they would have assumed the trip was completely uneventful. Then Nolan started acting differently. Not enough to alarm anyone. Just enough to be noticed. He became unusually quiet. Several times, Trevor caught him staring into the darkness beyond the trees. At one point, Brooke asked if something was bothering him. Nolan hesitated, then shrugged. "I'm good." That was the last real conversation anyone ever had with him. Around midnight, everyone went to sleep. The next morning, Trevor woke first. Nolan's tent was open. At first, he assumed Nolan had gone for a walk. But after several minutes passed, something felt wrong. Nolan's backpack was still inside. His wallet was there. His phone was there. Even his boots remained beside his sleeping bag. No experienced hiker would leave camp barefoot, especially in unfamiliar wilderness. Brooke and Trevor searched the area themselves for nearly an hour before contacting authorities. By that afternoon, search teams had entered the forest. Over the next 4 days, dozens of people searched for Nolan. Drones scanned miles of woodland. Tracking dogs followed every possible lead. Volunteers combed the trails. Nothing was found. No footprints. No clothing. No evidence of a struggle. No sign that Nolan had ever left the campsite. It was as if he had simply vanished. With no leads remaining, investigators turned their attention to the photos stored on Nolan's phone. Most of them were ordinary hiking pictures, until they reached the final image. The selfie beside the marked tree. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. Then one investigator zoomed in. The red mark wasn't where it should have been. According to Trevor and Brooke, Nolan's hand had been directly over the paint. But in the photo, the mark appeared much higher on the trunk, nearly 6 feet above his head, high enough that nobody could have touched it. Investigators dismissed it as perspective distortion, a camera angle, nothing more. But Trevor and Brooke disagreed. Both insisted the mark had been much lower, exactly where Nolan had touched it. Years later, the case remains unsolved. Nolan Pierce was never found. No remains were recovered. No suspects were identified. And nobody has ever explained why a warning sign stood at the entrance of that forest. A warning that, according to official records, shouldn't have been there at all. In the fall of 2021, a landscape photographer named Wyatt Carter traveled to a remote section of Raven Ridge National Forest. His goal was simple: capture sunset photographs from a location known as Raven's Point, a rocky overlook famous for its breathtaking views. The trail itself wasn't difficult, but there was one unusual thing about it. At the entrance stood a warning sign. Unlike most trail warnings, it didn't mention wildlife, cliffs, or dangerous terrain. Instead, it said, "Do not remain at Raven's Point after sunset." Visitors were instructed to leave immediately once the sun disappeared below the horizon. No explanation was provided, just the rule. Wyatt noticed the sign, then ignored it. According to friends, he believed the warning existed simply to discourage people from hiking after dark. Nothing more. Late that afternoon, he began the climb toward Raven's Point. The weather was perfect. The sky was clear. And by the time he reached the overlook, the sun was beginning to set. The view was incredible. Miles of forest stretched across the horizon. Mountain ridges faded into the distance. Everything was exactly what he had hoped for. As the sun dropped lower, Wyatt started taking photographs. Dozens of them. Then dozens more. Eventually, the sun disappeared below the horizon. Technically, he should have left. Instead, he stayed. The colors in the sky were becoming even more dramatic. As a photographer, he couldn't resist. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. By the time he finally packed up his equipment, darkness had already settled across the forest. The hike back to camp took nearly an hour. When he arrived, nothing seemed unusual. He cooked dinner, sent a text message to a friend, and went to sleep. The following morning, Wyatt began reviewing the photos he had taken. At first, everything looked normal. Beautiful landscapes, sunset colors, mountain views. Then he noticed something strange. One of the final photographs contained a figure, a person, standing far below the overlook near the tree line. The figure was tiny, easy to miss. Wyatt assumed it was another hiker, but as he continued scrolling through the images, the figure appeared again, and again, and again. In every photo, it was slightly closer. At first, Wyatt thought it was impossible. The photographs had been taken only seconds apart. Nobody could have covered that distance so quickly. Yet with every image, the figure appeared nearer to the overlook, nearer to him. The final photograph disturbed him the most. The figure was now standing only a short distance away, close enough to clearly see its outline, but not its face. According to Wyatt, he never saw anyone at Ravens Point that evening. Not once. Still unsettled, he uploaded several of the images to his laptop. Then something even stranger happened. The timestamp on the final photograph didn't make sense. Officially, the image had been taken nearly 40 minutes after he had already left the overlook. At first, Wyatt blamed a camera malfunction. Then he checked the rest of the files. Every other timestamp was correct. Only the final image was wrong. Over the next week, Wyatt became obsessed with the photographs. He enlarged them, enhanced them, studied them for hours. The more he looked, the more convinced he became that someone had been standing behind him on the overlook. Someone he had never seen. A week later, he returned to Raven Ridge National Forest, alone. According to park records, Wyatt signed in at the trailhead shortly after noon. He told nobody exactly why he was going back. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. When Wyatt failed to return home, authorities launched a search operation. His vehicle was eventually discovered in the parking area. So was most of his camera equipment. But Wyatt was nowhere to be found. Search teams spent 6 days combing the surrounding wilderness. No trace of him was ever recovered. Months later, investigators examined his laptop. The final folder contained dozens of enlarged images from Ravens Point. Most focused on the mysterious figure. But one image stood out. It was the last photograph Wyatt had ever edited. The figure had been enlarged significantly, just enough to reveal a disturbing detail. The person wasn't looking out toward the forest. They were looking directly at Wyatt, almost as if they knew the photograph was being taken. The case remains unsolved. Wyatt Carter was never found. And to this day, visitors to Ravens Point still encounter the same warning sign. Do not remain at Ravens Point after sunset. No one knows who put it there, and no one seems willing to explain why. So now I want to hear your theory. What do you think really happened in these forests? Was it something completely explainable? Or do you think the warnings existed for a reason? Out of all 3 stories, which one disturbed you the most? The cabin, the marked tree, or Ravens Point? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoy true horror, unsolved mysteries, and stories that leave more questions than answers, make sure to subscribe, because the next story might be even stranger than these. Until next time, stay out of the woods.